Reluctant impersonation just this once. Deepa, I'm not making a habit of impersonating you, Priya said, adjusting the professional blazer her friend had lent her. It felt too tight across the shoulders, much like this entire situation felt constrained. An uncomfortable deeper sing paced around Priya's apartment, twisting her hands together. I wouldn't ask if I wasn't desperate. I freeze up in interviews, and this is Resonant Designs we're talking about. I've dreamed of working there. Since architecture school, Priya sighed, smoothing down the resume with Deepa's credentials. I still don't understand why you can't just reschedule, because Resonant doesn't give second chances. They're the most sought-after firm in Bangalore. Do you know how many applications they reject daily? Deepa stopped pacing long enough to give Priya a pleading look. Just go take notes on their questions, observe the office culture, and tell me everything. I'll be better prepared next time. If there is a next time, Priya muttered, but she nodded agreement. After all, what were best friends for, if not occasionally committing light fraud? I'll be clear that I'm just gathering information. I won't actually pretend to be you during the interview. Thank you. Thank you. Deepa embraced her tightly. You're the best friend anyone could ask for. As a marketing executive for a tech company, Priya had no interest in architecture beyond appreciating beautiful buildings. Her life was settled, predictable. At 28, she had a decent apartment, a career trajectory, and a comfortable routine. The last thing she needed was complications. An hour later, Priya stood before the gleaming glass tower housing Resonant Designs. The building itself was a testament to architectural innovational sweeping curves and sustainable materials, capturing light in ways that seemed to defy physics. For a moment, she understood Deepa's obsession. The receptionist directed her to the 14th floor. Mr. Malhotra is expecting you, she said with a practiced smile. The elevator ride gave Priya time to rehearse her explanation. She would be honest from the start she was here on behalf of Deepa Singh, who had an anxiety attack this morning. She would gather information about the position and the company, culture, to help her friend prepare for a rescheduled interview. Simple, straightforward. Ethical-ish. The doors opened to reveal an open-concept office space where designers bent over drafting tables or stared intently at computer screens. Models of buildings, some recognizable landmarks. Others clearly conceptual adorned pedestals throughout the space. Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating the creative energy pulsing through the room. A young assistant approached. Miss Singh, please follow me. Priya followed, clutching her borrowed portfolio case, feeling increasingly like an imposter witch. Technically, she was.
Wow.
They stopped before a door with a simple nameplate. Vikram Malhotra, Design Director. Be with you shortly, the assistant said, opening the door to a minimalist office dominated by a large drafting table covered with blueprints. Alone. Priya studied the framed awards and photographs on the wall. Vikram Malhotra had clearly made a name for himself in the architectural world. One photograph showed him shaking hands with a government official at what appeared to be a ribbon-cutting ceremony for a striking public library. The door opened behind her. Sorry to keep you waiting. I was just finishing a call with our Tokyo office. Priya turned, prepared to launch into her explanation, but the words died in her throat. Standing before her was not some stern-faced stranger, but a ghost from her past. Older now, more polished, with subtle threads of silver at his temples that hadn't been there 7 years ago, but unmistakably him. Vikram Srinivasan, her first love. The boy who had written her poetry in the margins of engineering textbooks. The man who had disappeared from her life without explanation during their final year at university. Except now. Apparently he was Vikram Malhotra. Their eyes met, and recognition dawned in his expression, followed quickly by shock. Priya whispered, the portfolio in his hands slipping to the floor, papers scattering like memories between them. I think there's been a mistake, she managed to say, heart hammering against her ribs. I'm here for Deepa Singh. She couldn't make it. But they both knew the real mistake had happened years ago on a rainy evening when everything fell apart. And somehow, impossibly, the universe had engineered this moment to bring them face to face with what they'd lost. Ghosts of yesterday, the portfolio lay scattered between them. architectural designs and blueprints creating a paper bridge across the 7 years of silence. Neither moved to collect them. You're not Deepa. Sing, Vikram finally said, his voice steadier than his hands. No, Priya exhaled slowly. Deepa is my friend. She had an anxiety attack this morning about the interview. I came to gather information for her. Vikram nodded, processing this explanation while his eyes never left her face, as if she might vanish if he blinked. You didn't know I would be conducting the interview. I didn't know you were Vikram Malhotra, she replied, emphasizing his surname. When did that happen? A shadow crossed his face. After graduation, my mother remarried. I took my stepfather's name when he adopted me formally. He paused. It was a fresh start. The unspoken words hung between them. A fresh start after you, Priya. Knelt to gather the scattered papers, needing something to do with her trembling hands. Vikram joined her on the floor, their fingers occasionally brushing as they collected the portfolio contents. You look well, he said softly. Marketing, right? Remember, you were always brilliant at understanding what people wanted before they knew themselves. Surprise flickered across her face. You kept track of me? LinkedIn, he admitted with a half-smile that was achingly familiar. I never connected, but yes, I looked you up occasionally. They stood, the portfolio reassembled, but their composure still fragmented. Vikram gestured toward the chair across from his desk, and Priya sat, feeling like she'd stepped into some alternate universe where past and present collided without warning. I should probably go, she said. This is unexpected, he finished. But you're here now. I have an hour blocked for this interview. He settled into his chair, a professional mask sliding into place. Besides, don't you need information for your friend? Priya recognized the challenge in his tone. The Vikram she'd known had always been quietly stubborn, and apparently that hadn't changed. Fine, she conceded. Tell me about the position. It's for. The next 20 minutes, they maintained the charade of a professional interview. Vikram described the junior architect role, the firm's philosophy, and their current projects. Priya took dutiful notes for Deepa, while stealing glances at the man across from her. He'd filled out since university, no longer the lanky scholarship student with perpetually ink-stained fingers. Success had given him confidence, but she could still see traces of the boy who had once spent an entire night constructing a miniature Taj Mahal from recycled materials for her birthday. We value innovation here, Vikram was saying, but not at the expense of practicality. Buildings must serve the people who use them, not just the egos of those who design them. You always believed that, Priya said without thinking. Remember your thesis project? It's a community center with adjustable spaces that could be reconfigured based on the neighborhood's changing needs? Something softened in his expression. You remember that? I remember everything, she admitted immediately. Regretting the vulnerability in her voice, Vikram's professional demeanor cracked slightly. Priya, about what happened? It was a long time ago, she interrupted. Not ready to excavate old wounds in this sterile office environment. We were different people, were we? His question hung in the air between them. Before she could respond, his intercom buzzed. Mr. Malhotra, your 2 o'clock conference call is in 5 minutes. Vikram pressed the button. Thank you, Annika. He turned back to Priya. I suppose that concludes our interview. She stood, gathering her notes in Deepa's portfolio. I'll let Deepa know about the position requirements. She's extremely talented. Her designs have won several student competitions. I'm sure she is, he said, standing as well. Thought I'm more interested in having coffee with you? To catch up. When Priya hesitated, he added, for closure, if nothing else. The word closure stung more than it should have, said all she represented to him now, in finished business to be neatly concluded. I don't think that's necessary, she said, moving toward the door. The Blue Lotus Cafe. Tomorrow at 3 p.m., he persisted. It's still your favorite, isn't it? You'd practically live there during exams. The fact that he remembered her favorite cafe from their university days made something twist painfully in her chest. How would you know it's still my favorite, is it? She paused, hand on the doorknob. Yes, then I'll be there, he said simply. Whether you come or not is your choice. Priya left without answering, heart pounding as she navigated through the open office space toward the elevator. Designers and architects glanced up curiously as she passed, perhaps noticing her flushed cheeks or rapid breathing in the elevator. She leaned against the wall and closed her eyes. 7 years of carefully constructed indifference were crumbling around her. She'd told herself she was over Vikram, that his unexplained disappearance had been for the best. She'd convinced herself that what they'd shared had been youthful infatuation, nothing more. But standing before him again, she realized with startling clarity that some feelings don't dissipate with time, they simply go dormant, waiting for the right conditions to bloom again. As the elevator descended, so did the walls she'd built around her heart. By the time she reached the ground floor, one question dominated her thoughts. Would she meet him tomorrow? The rational part of her insisted it would be foolish to reopen old wounds. But another voice, one she hadn't heard in years, whispered that some questions deserved answers, even if they came 7 years too late. Outside, the Bangalore afternoon enveloped her in humid warmth as she hailed a taxi. The driver asked for her destination, and Priya hesitated, suddenly unsure of where. She was going in more ways than one. Walls crumbling, the Blue Lotus Cafe hadn't changed in 7 years. The same mismatched furniture, the same chipped blue mugs, the same scent of cardamom and coffee lingering in the air. Priya arrived 20 minutes early, choosing a corner table. With a view of the door and a clear path to the exit, she hadn't planned to come. After leaving Resonant Designs yesterday, she'd called Deepa and mechanically relayed information about the position, carefully omitting the identity of the interviewer. Then she'd spent the night alternating between drafting messages to cancel this meeting and deleting them. At 2:58 p.m., the door opened and Vikram stepped inside. He'd traded his formal office attire for a simple button-down shirt and jeans, looking more like the university student she'd once known. His eyes found her immediately, as if drawn by some invisible force. "You came," he said, sliding into the chair across from her. "I was curious," she replied, fingers tracing the rim of her already half-empty mug, and maybe tired of wondering. A server approached, and Vikram ordered masala chai without looking at the menu. Another fragment of the past he'd always preferred. "Tea to coffee. How's your friend Deepa? Was it?" he asked when they were alone again. Mortified that I impersonated her, but grateful for the intel. Priya attempted a smile. She wants to reschedule the interview, with the real Vikram Malhotra this time. "I'll make sure she gets a fair evaluation." He paused. "Though I won't be conducting it personally, conflict of interest, something like that." His chai arrived and he stirred it slowly. "So, marketing executive at TechSphere? Impressive. Don't do that," Priya said quietly. "Do what?" "Small talk. Not after everything." She leaned forward. "Why did you leave, Vikram? One day we were planning our future, and the next, you were gone." No explanation, no goodbye, just silence. The directness of her questions seemed to catch him off guard. He set down his spoon, the gentle clink against porcelain, punctuating the tension between them. "My father died," he said finally, "the night of the architecture showcase. Got the call just after you left to celebrate with your classmates." Priya's breath caught. "I didn't know. How could you? Never told you." His voice was devoid of accusation. He'd been sick for months, but kept it from me. "Didn't want to distract me from my studies." A bitter smile touched his lips. By the time I reached home, he was gone. She reached across the table instinctively, but stopped short of touching his hand. After the funeral, everything fell apart. The medical bills had bankrupted my mother. Our house was being foreclosed on. The scholarship that was supposed to fund my graduate studies fell through. He shook his head. I had to drop out, find work, take care of my mother. But why cut me off completely? I would have understood. I would have helped. Would you? His gaze met hers, challenging. "You had just received that prestigious internship in Singapore. Your future was so bright. Priya, I couldn't ask you to tie yourself to someone who had nothing to offer but debt and uncertainty. It wasn't your decision to make," she said, old anger finally finding voice. "You decided what was best for me without even talking to me. Do you have any idea what it was like searching for you, calling your disconnected number, going to your empty apartment? I thought something terrible had happened to you." "Something terrible did happen," he said quietly.
Else?
My father, my education, my plans and you. But at least with you, I thought I was doing the right thing by letting you go. The right thing, she echoed hollowly. Do you know I turned down the Singapore internship? I spent months looking for you instead. Pain flashed across his face. I didn't know that. My parents thought I'd lost my mind. Maybe I had. She took a shaky breath. Eventually, I picked up the pieces and moved on. Or tried to. The cafe hummed with afternoon activity around them. Patrons coming and going. Lives intersecting briefly before continuing on separate paths, much like theirs had done. Hey. What happened after? She asked. How did you go from dropping out to becoming design director at one of the most prestigious firms in the country? A hint of pride crossed his features. My mother remarried 2 years later, Jay Malhotra, a kind man who owned a construction company. He saw my sketches one day and offered me an apprenticeship. I learned the practical side of architecture. From the ground up, literally, when I had enough experience, he helped me complete my degree, and then resonant designs. Vikram nodded. I worked my way up. The design that won the National Architecture Award last year, for the Sustainable Community Housing Project. That was mine. I saw that in the news, Priya said, realization dawning. I remember thinking the designer's philosophy sounded familiar: buildings that grow with their communities, that adapt to people's needs rather than forcing people to adapt to them. Some core beliefs don't change, he said softly, never leaving hers. The implication hung between them, fraught with possibility. What about you? He asked. After Singapore didn't happen, I pivoted to marketing. Turned out I had a knack for it, she smiled faintly. I dated, focused on my career, built a life. Anyone serious? In the dating category, I mean, his attempt at casualness failed miserably. There was someone. For almost 2 years, Priya hesitated. We broke up 6 months ago, wanted marriage, children, a future I wasn't ready for. Because of him? Or because of not everything is about you, Vikram, she interrupted, then softened. But no, it wasn't right. I've never been able to, ... double quotes, she trailed off. Fully commit, he finished for her. Neither have I. Admission created a new tension. Between them, acknowledgement of the ghosts that had haunted their subsequent relationships. Outside, rain began to fall, pattering against the windows in a gentle rhythm. Neither made a move to leave. I missed you, Vikram said simply. Every day for 7 years I missed you. I was angry at you for so long, she confessed. But underneath that anger was just ... loss. Da! Their hands finally met across the table, fingers intertwining as naturally as they had years ago. The touch sent electricity through Priya's veins, both achingly familiar and thrillingly new. What happens now? She asked, suddenly afraid of the answer. I don't know, he admitted, but I'd like to find out, if you would. The rain intensified outside, blurring the world beyond the windows, creating a cocoon around them as walls carefully maintained for 7 years continued to crumble. Midnight confession. 3 weeks after their coffee reunion, Priya stood in her apartment, surrounded by half-packed boxes. A job offer from a marketing firm in Mumbai had arrived, unexpectedly higher salary, better position, chance for advancement. She'd applied months ago, before running into Vikram, before everything changed and stayed exactly the same. They'd been seeing each other cautiously since that rainy afternoon at Blue Lotus, dinners, walks through Cubbon Park, one impulsive weekend, trip to Mysore where they'd wandered through the palace like tourists, carefully avoiding talk of the future. It was good healing in ways she hadn't expected, but fragile. Undefined, her phone buzzed with a message from Deepa. Got the job. At Resonant. Different department from you-know-who. Thank goodness. Celebration dinner tomorrow? Priya smiled, typing back, congratulations. At least something had worked out perfectly from their impersonation scheme. Deepa had interviewed with the actual hiring committee last week, impressing them with her innovative designs and genuine passion. The Mumbai offer required an answer by tomorrow. Logic said to take it a fresh start, career advancement, no complicated history. She'd already begun packing. telling herself that 3 weeks of reconnection couldn't outweigh professional opportunity. She hadn't told Vikram yet. Somehow, the right moment never presented itself. Her conversations still dancing around anything that felt too serious, too permanent. The doorbell rang at 11:48 p.m., startling her. Through the peephole, she saw Vikram standing in the hallway, hair disheveled as if he'd been running his hands through it, repeatedly, a nervous habit he'd never outgrown. "Vikram," she said, opening the door. "Is everything okay? It's almost midnight." "No." He stepped inside, then stopped abruptly. At the sight of the boxes, "You're moving." It wasn't a question. His eyes scanned the half-dismantled living room, understanding dawning in his expression. "I got an offer in Mumbai," she explained, closing the door. "Senior marketing director at Pinnacle Media. When were you going to tell me? Tomorrow?" "Only have to give them my decision by—" "You've already decided," he said, gesturing at the boxes. "You're leaving?" Priya crossed her arms defensively. "It's a good opportunity. I'm sure it is." He paced the small space between packed boxes. "Is this because of us? Because things are complicated? Not everything's about you, Vikram," she said for the second time in 3 weeks, but with less conviction. He stopped pacing. "No, but this is about us, about what you're running from." "I'm not running," she protested. "I'm making a career decision. Are you?" His gaze was too perceptive, because the Priya I knew never shied away from difficult conversations. Yet we've spent 3 weeks talking about everything except what matters. She sighed, sinking onto the arm of her sofa. "Do you want me to say that I'm scared? Fine, I'm terrified. We've had a nice few weeks reconnecting, but what are we doing, Vikram? Where is this going? It's what I came here to talk about." He knelt before her, taking her hands in his. "I couldn't sleep tonight because I kept thinking about how I lost you once by making a unilateral decision about our future. I won't make that mistake again." Her heart hammered against her ribs. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I love you. Still, always." The words tumbled out with the force of long containment. "I'm saying that 7 years ago I thought letting you go was my only choice. But standing in your office 3 weeks ago, seeing you again, felt like the universe giving us another chance." "Vikram, let me finish," he pleaded. "I'm not asking you to give up your career. Take the job in Mumbai if it's what you truly want. But know that I'll follow you there if you'll have me. Resonant has been talking about opening a Mumbai branch. For years I could head that initiative. You'd do that? Uproot your life here? In a heartbeat?" His voice dropped to a whisper. "I've lived 7 years without you, Priya. I don't want to live another day that way if I don't have to." Tears pricked at her eyes. "It's not that simple. Can't just pick up where we left off. I know that. We're different people now, shaped by different experiences, different pain." His thumbs traced circles on her palms. "But some things haven't changed. The way I feel when I look at you, the way time seems to stop when you laugh, how I can't imagine building anything meaningful in this world if you're not part of it." Outside, the city had grown quiet, the late hour wrapping them in a cocoon of private intensity. Through her window, Bangalore's lights twinkled like earthbound stars, witnesses to this moment of truth between them. "I'm afraid," she admitted, voice barely audible. "Not of loving why, never stopped, even when I hated you for leaving. I'm afraid of building something again, only to have it collapse." Vikram reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, worn piece of paper, unfolding it carefully. "Do you remember this?" Priya's breath caught. It was a sketch on graph paper, yellowed with age, their dream house. They'd designed it together during final year, a whimsical exercise that had somehow felt like a promise. A modern structure with large windows, space for her home office, his design studio, room to grow. "You kept this all these years?" He nodded. "It's been in my wallet since the day we drew it, a reminder of what I lost, what I hope to build someday." He placed the fragile paper in her hands. "Real buildings need strong foundations, Priya. They need to be engineered to withstand storms and earthquakes and the passage of time. What we had before was beautiful, but maybe it wasn't built to last through the kind of pressure we faced. And now," she whispered, "now we have the chance to rebuild something stronger, with deeper foundations, better support structures." His eyes held hers, earnest, and vulnerable. I can't promise we won't face challenges, but I can promise I won't walk away from them more from you ever again. The clock on her wall ticked past midnight. A new day had begun while they sat suspended. Between past and future, between fear and possibility, Mumbai is a beautiful city, Vikram said softly. But so is Bangalore. So would be any city where we're together. Priya looked down at the sketch in her hands, then at the boxes surrounding them, physical manifestations of the choice before her. Career advancement in a new city, or a second chance at a love she'd never truly recovered from. I need to think, she said finally. This isn't a decision I can make tonight. He nodded, disappointment flashing across his features before understanding replaced it. Of course. Take all the time you need. He stood, reluctantly releasing her hands. Don't leave without saying goodbye this time. The irony wasn't lost on either of them, roles reversed, masking for the closure she'd been denied. At the door, he paused. Whatever you decide, Priya, know that finding you again has been the greatest unexpected gift of my life. After he left, she sat alone in her half-dismantled apartment. The sketch of their dream house in her lap, weighing possibilities against probabilities, safety against risk. The sensible choice was clear: take the job, advance her career, protect her heart. But as the night deepened around her, Priya realized that sometimes the most logical decision isn't the right one. Sometimes the heart recognizes truths the mind is too cautious to acknowledge. By dawn, she knew what she had to do. Blueprints redrawn 6 months later, Priya stood on the balcony of her new apartment, watching the sun set over Bangalore's skyline. The evening air carried the scent of jasmine from the potted plants she'd arranged along the railing, a small garden in the sky, 12 floors above the bustling city streets. Behind her, the apartment door opened. I brought dinner, Vikram called, that new place near Resonant that you wanted to try. She smiled, turning to watch him set the takeout bags on their dining table. He'd loosened his tie and rolled up his sleeves, signs of a long day at the office, but his eyes brightened when they met hers. How was the presentation? She asked, joining him inside. We got the contract. His grin was boyish with excitement. The sustainable housing development near the tech park. The committee loved our community-centered approach. Of course they did. Priya reached up to straighten his collar. It's brilliant work. And your campaign launch? Exceeded projections by 18%. She couldn't keep the pride from her voice. Apparently social media engagement is up 40% since I took over TechSphere's marketing department. Vikram pulled her into a celebratory embrace. I told you they'd regret it if they didn't make you department head. 6 months ago, Priya had declined the Mumbai offer, instead negotiating a promotion at TechSphere. The decision hadn't been made. Lightly, she'd spent days weighing her options, consulting mentors, making pro-con lists. But in the end, what tipped the scales wasn't logic but possibility. The chance to rebuild something extraordinary with the man who had reappeared in her life against all odds. Their relationship wasn't perfect. They still argued about his workaholic tendencies, her reluctance to fully trust, the small irritations that arise when two independent people learn to share space again. But beneath those surface tensions ran a current of profound understanding. A foundation strengthened rather than weakened by their years apart. Deepa called today, Priya said, as they unpacked the food containers. She's been assigned to your Mysore Heritage Preservation Project. I know. Vikram handed her a plate. She's got a remarkable eye for integrating modern elements while honoring historical architecture. Perfect for that project. She also mentioned she's dating someone from the engineering department, Nikhil, he confirmed with a knowing smile. They've been dancing around each other for weeks. I may have strategically assigned them to the same team. Priya arched an eyebrow. Playing matchmaker now, Mr. Malhotra. It worked out pretty well for us, didn't it? I can't take credit for the universe's intervention. After dinner, they settled on the sofa with their laptops. Falling into the comfortable rhythm they'd established working side by side, occasionally sharing ideas or simply existing in compatible silence, their professional worlds remained separate but complementary, each supporting the other's ambitions while pursuing their own. Later, as Vikram sketched preliminary designs for a new project, Priya retrieved a small package from her office. "Have something for you," she said, sitting beside him. "It's an early anniversary gift." He set aside his tablet, curious. "Our anniversary isn't for 2 more weeks. This couldn't wait." She handed him the carefully wrapped package, suddenly nervous. Vikram unwrapped it slowly, revealing a leather portfolio case. Inside was a set of architectural renderings, professional grade, detailed, and immediately familiar. "This is ... His voice faltered as he flipped through the pages. "Our house," she confirmed. "The one we designed in university. I had it professionally rendered with some updates." The original sketch had been transformed into comprehensive architectural plans. Their whimsical student design evolved into something buildable, practical, yet still distinctly theirs. The large windows remained, but with sustainable features added. The home, office, and design studio were there, along with a garden terrace, open-concept living spaces, and notably a nursery that could easily become a child's bedroom. Priya, he traced the lines with reverent fingers. "This is incredible. There's more." She handed him a small envelope containing a land deed. "It's a plot just outside the city. It's close enough for our commutes, but with enough space for gardens. And that view of the hills you always wanted?" Vikram stared at the deed, then at her, eyes wide with realization. "You're saying ... I'm saying I'm ready?" Her voice was steady, despite her racing heart. "To build something permanent with you, literally and figuratively." He pulled her close, his embrace conveying everything words couldn't: gratitude, love, wonder. "Are you sure? Construction is messy, unpredictable, but there will be delays, budget concerns, unexpected structural issues." They both knew he wasn't just talking about the house. "I'm sure," she said, meeting his gaze with certainty. "Some projects are worth the investment, no matter how complex the process." Later that night, they spread the renderings across their bed, discussing modifications, improvements, dreams, aid. The plans themselves became a metaphor for their relationship honoring the original vision while incorporating hard-won wisdom, creating something stronger and more beautiful than either could have designed alone. "Remember that line you told me about during our first interview?" Vikram asked as they finally sat the plans aside. "Sometimes the job you never applied for is the one that gives." "You back the love you thought you lost forever," Priya laughed. That was Deepa's melodramatic addition to her resume. She thought it sounded profound. It was right, though, he mused, drawing her closer. "Neither of us applied for this reunion. It was thrust upon us by circumstance or fate, if you believe in that sort of thing. I never used to," she admitted. "But it's hard to call what happened anything else. Odds of me walking into that particular interview, on that particular day? 1 in millions," he murmured against her hair. Outside their window, Bangalore continued its nocturnal symphony, car horns, distant music, the gentle hum of a city that never truly sleeps. Inside, they created their own quieter harmony too. Lives that had diverged and reconnected, now entwined in plans both architectural and emotional. The journey ahead wouldn't be without challenges. Building a house, nurturing a relationship, reconciling past pain with present joy of it, would be simple. But as architects and lovers both know, the most enduring structures aren't those that avoid pressure, but those designed to withstand it, to flex without breaking, to grow stronger through each storm. In the morning, they would return to their separate offices, their individual careers. Priya would lead her marketing team through their next campaign launch. Vikram would continue revolutionizing sustainable urban housing. But they would come home to this shared space, this foundation. They were carefully reconstructing, and someday they would stand together on the land outside the city, watching as the house they'd first dreamed of in university, the one they'd carried in hearts and wallets and memories. Through 7 years of separation, rose from blueprint to reality, some designs take time to perfect. Some structures need to be dismantled before they can be rebuilt properly. And some loves, like the most innovative architecture, don't follow conventional plans, but instead create something entirely new, a home for the heart that stands the test of time.